Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont. You know, a good few years ago, another YouTuber contacted me because they had partnership with a Dune fan forum or something, who also sponsored one of my videos. That was cool, but that isn't what today is about. No, I got a review copy of Dune Awakening. Yes, in September. Dune Awakening came out 3 or 4 months ago. Timely. Well, to reiterate though, I received a key for this game from the publisher, so here we are. Dunk Awakening is a survival, sandbox, crafting game in the style of things like Ark, Valheim, perhaps most appropriately, Conan Exiles from the same developers. What is the name of the genre? Survival crafting? I'm not sure. I'll point out it's not my area of expertise. I don't play many of these games, but effectively this genre places you in an open world and allows you to gather resources to craft items and buildings. And there's also fighting. You can poke people until they succumb. Often these games appear light on story. Dune takes place in what seems to be an alternate timeline or reality. If you're a fan of Dune, I expect that is what would have you picking this game up in the first place over the many others in the genre. Same way that I, as a Lord of the Rings fan, was quite interested in that Return to Moria game. But simply put, after a short intro you are dumped into the desert of Arrakis, Dune. You'll gather materials and water to survive the heat. Beyond this, of course, you'll be able to find characters, NPCs in the world who will train you, give you missions and so on. And classic Dune things, of course, make an appearance. The slow blade to penetrate enemy shields, thopters to move about the world in, and of course, the most famous of Dune's creations, the worm. Characters have classes and skill trees. You can equip 2 or 3 skills at a time, such as a grappling hook to stun enemies or move around the terrain with. Then you have essentially magic using the voice and so on, all suitably Dune themed. This is a hard game to review as someone who isn't really into survival crafting games. It seems suitably authentic to the Dune brand and universe, which is likely exciting for fans of the setting. At the same time, my knowledge of Dune is shallow enough that it could be messing everything up and I'd not realise. But alternate timeline reality, so there's that, which allows them to get away from just, reenacting things from the movies and books. Unfortunately, aside from survival games not being quite my jam, Dune is also set in, well, Dune is a desert planet. By literal definition of the word, that is boring. A desert is literally a boring landscape. Look, I don't mind a desert level in a game now and then, but when the world itself is such a large part of the game, and it is in a game like this, I think that's also quite boring. And yes, I know, Dune is literally a desert world. I'm not saying they need to change it. There can be beauty in that too, but it also means that most of the game is effectively just a brown blob with some rocks in. Authentic perhaps, but not interesting to me. I like an open world full of, well, if it's a medieval game full of castles, or if it's more modern, megastructures, underground dwarven ruins, mysterious mountains. In fact, when I was making my character in Dune, I was looking at the worlds you can choose to hail from, and I was like, man, these all sound a lot cooler than what we're actually going to be playing with. And if it's in an alternate timeline anyway, couldn't we just be on some of these other planets? Wouldn't that be more interesting? Do people really want to be in the desert in Dune? Is that what the appeal is? I don't know, because I'm not really a Dune fan. So whilst it is a built-in defense that Arrakis is a desert, what do you expect? At the same time, I don't think an open world game is exactly playing to the strengths of Dune, in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong. Maybe Dune fans go, man, I wish I could just walk around in a desert all day and try not to die of dehydration. I just don't know. To me though, it's like making a Star Wars game that's focused on healing people in Bacta tanks, or a game in Witcher's world which is focused on cleaning vomit off the floor in taverns. Those are things that happen in Star Wars and Witcher. It's not what I'm personally interested in about those worlds though. Of course, that isn't to say you won't be doing anything exciting in Dune. There's fighting, there's flying, there's running away from sandworms, there's PvP. Well, I know that PvP exists, but frankly I don't think I'm gonna be getting to the PvP area, and I have no interest in PvP, especially in a game like this. Honestly, the combat in this game is real janky. Guns exist, you point and you pew. It doesn't feel good though. Melee combat consists of a basic, parry, block, light, heavy system, but likewise does not feel good, doesn't feel polished. It's just something that exists in the game. The dodge animation, well, it's probably one of the funniest I've ever seen, frankly. The emphasis here is probably more on the non-combat, even if there are large swathes of the skill trees that are kind of dedicated solely to combat. On that note, Dune seems a little convoluted to me on the crafting and building side. At the start of the game, for example, a guy is telling you what to do. It makes sense. He's like, gather some plant fibers to make yourself some clothes to protect yourself from the sun. Gotcha. So you gather some plant fibers. Then you open a menu and you research the clothes. How? Why? You didn't learn the plans. What are you researching? The character is just thinking about it? Why wasn't that just automatically learned and in your inventory to craft? You open a menu, you research clothes, go to another menu, you make clothes, all while standing there. It feels like they just made up the systems based on what other games do without really thinking about it at this point in the game. Why am I researching things in my character's brain? It's just a gameplay mechanic that feels 100% like a gameplay mechanic. Like, in most games you die and you respawn, you don't really think about it. It's like that sort of thing. Later on, I imagine you'll be finding blueprints and then you research the blueprints. That makes more sense, of course. But even so, I've heard there are also unique blueprints, which you can use once, then you need to find them again. What? Doesn't that completely defeat the point of a blueprint? If you give me the recipe for a meal, and then you destroy it after I use it, there's a chance I will forget parts of it, sure, but for the most part I'm going to remember what to do. So why, if you give me a blueprint for a gun that needs 10 different things, do I make the gun and then just go, I forgot how to do that immediately, I better find another blueprint? Is there some sort of internal logic there that I'm just not following, or is this just, again, gameplay over logic? These are some sort of design decisions that they're baffling to me, and I'm more forgiving of them in a game where the gameplay is really good. But in this game, I feel like the point is to be immersed into the world, and weird things like this take me out of it and just break my immersion. And again, it's someone who doesn't really play these games, maybe these all make sense to veterans of the genre. Even if I compare it in its most superficial form to Elden Ring. In that game you find cookbooks that tell you, hey, if you combine this flour with this glass bottle, you'll make an explosive. That makes sense. In Dune, you find the blueprints for a gun, you study it, make the gun, then your character's like, I have no idea how I did that. Lol. Maybe there is some explanation for it. But the game, from my perspective, is full of small little things that you might say they're nitpicks, and to some extent they are, but they take me out of it, they ruin the immersion, and they irritate me. And the longer that I would play the game, the more it would irritate me, having all these weird little design decisions that just seem counterintuitive. The base building is decent. I'm once again comparing it to the very limited experience I have from other games with similar things like, Fallout 76, Minecraft, even Final Fantasy XIV's house building to some extent. Disclaimer, I'm comparing it to Minecraft from, 15 years ago, or whenever I last played Minecraft. Man, is Minecraft really that old? But it's fairly easy to get to grips with it in Dunk. It is fun to find a little niche in the world and build a base there and plan out what you want to do next. That sort of gameplay loop is understandable. One problem here is that if you don't play the game for a while, from what I understand, your buildings will all be reclaimed by the desert, which I think is awful, as it means you need one person in your friend group. It's not hard, just have one person log on every day and check the base. Yeah, at that point it becomes a job, not a game, and I absolutely abhor that, because this is, if I were into this sort of game, it's the game I would play in a concentrated burst for maybe a week or two. Then I would go play other games, then I would come back to it later and all my stuff's gone, so then I would just never come back to the game again. And that's a reason where the story stuff makes sense, because the desert is reclaiming buildings that are not maintained. Okay, but then you also have your character having to think about research plans in his own head. It just doesn't make sense. It all feels very unbalanced and poorly thought out and inconsistent to me. The other big problem is that, again, it's a desert. My choice of where to build a base are against some rocks or against some rocks, I think you need to either be super into deserts or super into Dune to find that in any way appealing. In summary, if you're a fan of Dune and survival games, you're probably already playing this one and you already have 500 hours in it, so why are you watching this? If you like Dune but not survival games, it might be worth it if you treat it more like a story game and focus on those elements. If you like survival games but not Dune, honestly you're probably better off playing something with more variety that's not as bland as this, like Abiotic Factor or something like that. This game isn't bad, but to me it is just bland. Last of all, it was on Unreal Engine 5 and it wasn't optimized very well, which is quite alarming given most of this game is an empty desert. Character models aren't great, the world, it looks so bland that if you showed me a screenshot and it didn't have a Dune specific thing in, like a worm, I'd be like, I don't know what game that's from, buddy, it's a desert. It looks very stock and generic, is what I'm saying. So it's a very average game that if you're a Dune fan, you'll probably get a kick out of. So yeah, if you like Dune or survival games, give it a shot. Otherwise, probably not.